Another week and time for another 3-round mock draft with trades. What's going on, everybody? Teach back again with, like I said, another mock draft to bring y'all. We're going to go ahead and jump right into the action. I do have a couple of disclaimers to get out of the way first. Do want to apologize. I didn't get to respond to nearly as many comments as I normally do on last week's mock. I've had some, my grandma's been in the hospital, not to get into too many details, but hasn't been a whole lot of positive news over the last couple of weeks, so I've been trying to spend a whole lot of time there. Hopefully things start to get a little bit better over the next week, and hopefully I'll be able to respond to some comments. Also, I did want to, this is going to be the third to last mock, I think, that we put out before the actual mock draft. This one's a little bit more chaos in the top 10. Things I don't think are going to happen, but I do want to discuss as possibilities. So I don't think this is like my final predictive. We're going to have 2 more mock drafts. I also am going to put out one more round of my final position rankings, offense, defense. And then let me know if you guys want to see my big board. Those are videos that don't typically do a whole lot of numbers on my channel. So if it's like too in the weeds and you don't really care, I totally get it. But if you guys are interested in seeing like my top 100, I'd love to bring that y'all's way if there is an interest. But let's go ahead and start by talking about this 2023 mock. The Chicago Bears get us started. It's going to be Caleb Williams at number 1. Don't need to discuss that. That's going to be the pick. Here at number 2, I'm going to go Drake May. And I do want to acknowledge, I saw, was it SB Nation? Hogs Haven, I think, is their Washington site. They had an interview with Adam Schefter saying it's safe to buy Jane Daniels jerseys. So that kind of sounds like it's going to be Jaden as the pick here. And I know a couple other Commander fans that I'm friends with, and some of the people they follow, beat reporters, are making it sound like it's going to be Jaden. So maybe this is Jaden at 2. I still want to. So basically, my next 2 mocks, I'm still going to do some of the same stuff I'm doing with Washington, just with different players in mind and different position groups in mind. We'll do Jane Daniels for the next mock, but Adam Schefter is also the person who told us Mac Jones was going to be the number 3 pick to San Francisco, and it'll be in Trey Lance. So I don't know. I am kind of leaning that it's going to be Jaden, but Schefter's been wrong before, so I'm going to stick with my original plan here. Drake May is the pick at 2. Then here at 3, Jane Daniels, the selection for New England, could just kind of usher in a new era. Obviously, we're going from Bill B to Gerard Mayo, more mobile quarterback, great deep ball accuracy with Jane Daniels. We're going to need to find at the NFL level if he can throw over the middle of the field. That's really where great teams are winning nowadays. So that's a little bit of a question mark I have about him and Michael Penix, my QBs 4 and 3 respectively. But nonetheless, New England needs to turn a new page. And you could also kind of ease Daniels into the situation if you feel like throwing him in the middle is something that's going to take a little time. They have, of the teams of Washington, New England, Minnesota, they have the best guy who can start right now, and that's Jacoby Brissett. So I'd be really interested to see what the angle is for Daniels if they do make this pick at 3. Then we get here to 4. I'm going to have Arizona trade back, this time with the New York Giants. I think this could make some sense, kind of like what we talked about with the Bears last year, where it's like they want to trade out of 1, but they want to be in Jalen Carter range, and that was obviously before everything happened with Jalen Carter. I think the Cardinals could do the same thing here and get another top 100 pick. I think they already have like 6 picks in the top 90. Let's actually just count them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 in the top 90. We're about to give them back-to-back picks at 70 and 71. So 7 picks, in the top 90. That's crazy. It's a little bit of an overpay, actually, when it comes to points, so don't yell at me. And ultimately, Arizona's going to get the guy I would have had them take here at 4, not to give away too much. Giants get the draft and stash. J.J. McCarthy, think he could totally be a personality they like. That being said, it does feel like ownership loves Daniel Jones, but his guaranteed money's up after this year. It feels like a perfect situation where you draft McCarthy, sit him for a year. Best case scenario, Daniel Jones plays like he did 2 years ago, and all of a sudden there might be a trade market for him, So when the Giants kind of ship him out, get an extra asset, J.J. McCarthy takes over. I like it. Then we get to the Chargers here, and this is one of those things where I don't think this will happen, but at the same time, you hear about Harbaugh and winning in the trenches and some of the stuff, the quotes that came out from, I think it was the Combine, maybe it was before then. But I could still see a world where Alt is their guy, even if Marv is there. Marv is going to be higher on my big board. But I don't think it's crazy where some teams could have Alt in that same stratosphere that we see Marvin Harrison Jr. in. I could see a team like a New England, like a Los Angeles Chargers, where they're like, we understand Marvin Harrison Jr. is great. But by the second round, there's still great receivers available. there's a little bit of a tackle drop-off. We think Alt is the same tier, a blue chipper, just like Marvin Harrison Jr., and if I do my big board, Alt is definitely a blue chipper for me. So I could see a world where he does end up being the pick. I do also want to shout out, I believe it was Arjun Menon. He posted, it was either him or Tage Seth, but I'm pretty sure it's Arjun Menon, who posted a screenshot of his latest mock, and he did this as well. So he sniped me here, but I do think there's a world where Alt could end up being the pick over Marv. Also, I think Arjun is a Chargers fan, so shout out my man Arjun. He knows his stuff. And then easy selection here. This would have been Neighbors, so if it's Marv at 5, this is Neighbors, and I'm totally comfortable with that, but best receiver in the class goes to a team that absolutely needs a number 1 guy. This would be a win of all wins, and you get an extra third. I mean, Cardinals fans would just be lining up the streets trying to like kiss the feet of Monty Ossenforth. This would be like Jesus coming through on Good Friday. Let's get on to the Tennessee Titans, and this is really what I wanted to explore. And ultimately, if you were to ask me, hey, Joe Alt's off the board, what's Tennessee do here? I'd say it's either J.C. Latham, Talise Fuanga, one of those two guys, probably. Maybe they just say, hey, fuck it, let's go get Roma Dunze or Malik Neighbors. I'd be all for that. I would love that. As someone who had Will Levis as QB2, give that man all the weapons possible. And like Rome learning from D-Hop could be sick. But this team needs edge. Rand Carthon coming from San Francisco, a background of prioritizing edge rushers. Like, look, if we think Dallas Turner can go 8, let's have the conversation. Can he go 7? It's only 1 pick difference, and it's a team that also has a major edge need. And I'm going to have them take a tackle at the top of the second round that presents a huge upside. And when you put him in the hands of Bill Callahan, you feel pretty good about him hitting the upper side of variance of his range of outcomes. So, again, I don't think Tennessee would do this. This is not my predictive mock, but have you seen a mock draft with the Titans take an edge in the top 10? I personally haven't. So if you have, let me know who did it, and I'll check it out. But I have not seen that. And, man, to go get a high caliber, high floor, uber traits kind of upside play here, Dallas Turner at 7, I think it's worth having the conversation for Tennessee, specifically if Joe Alt is not on the board. We get to the Atlanta Falcons at 8. Took everything in my powers not to go Quinyon Mitchell. I'm starting to kind of lean in that direction, even if Turner's here. It's going to be Latu or Quinyon in my final mock here at 8. That's going to be something I deliberate over a ton. But at the same time, with Zach Robinson going over from LA, dude, you're telling me you can have a receiver core of Rondale Moore, Darnell Mooney, Malik Neighbors, and Kyle Pitts plus Drake London. I mean, sign me up. Plus, you go bring in Kirk Cousins. I mean, why have him only throw to a wide receiver 1 and a really nice tight end, right? Like, go get 2 wide receiver 1s and then have 2 guys behind him who, like Rondale Moore, love him as a 3. Mooney, solid 3. Okay, number 2. Like, you're just putting all these weapons around him. I'm totally here for it. And then here at 9, Rome Odunze getting to play inside out, probably playing on the outside mostly year 1 with Keenan there in the slot. Love long-term the compliment he has with DJ Moore. I think their strengths kind of overline with their weaknesses, but also body type-wise, contested catch, physicality with Odunze, where DJ's a little bit more slight built and sub 6 foot. So, again, kind of strengths and weaknesses overlapping there. And as long as you have Keenan Allen, that's one of the best receiver trios in the league. And I mean, one of maybe the best situation that a number 1 pick has ever stepped into, in my opinion. Then we get to the Jets here. There were reports that the Jets might want to trade back, and I have cooked up something here where I think that makes a lot of sense. I also think this makes a lot of sense for Cincinnati, right? So it's going to be 18, pick 80, and then next year's third. I don't know why I didn't move the meter here. This is about evens point-wise. And then, you know what? I could see with 2 6s, the Jets are like, hey, just give us one more swing of the bat so we can get one more, receiver, one more DB, whatever, a linebacker, whatever, safety maybe, in the 6th round that we could add. And really my thinking here is like, T. Higgins, let's say you keep him around. He's going to sign a big contract next year. He goes into the compensatory equation for this team. So they're probably going to get a comp pick in the 3rd round next year. So it's kind of a pick swap. You'll give up, pick, let's just say 80. That's where they're slotted in right now. And then they'll end up getting another pick like 97. So a little bit of a slide back in next year's 3rd. So you're really moving from 18 to 10 for pick 80 and 194. That's a steal in Cincinnati's case. But for the Jets, an extra 3rd round pick, you'll take that. Extra 6th rounder, one more swing of the bat. And if Rodgers does decide to play a 2nd year, that future 3rd could also come in handy as well. And the pick here is going to be Brock Bowers. I think he's too good of a player to get outside the top 10, but position value is going to be an interesting one. I just think you play him in the slot. You can also play him in line. I think he'd be just fine at that. It's typically his own blocking scheme there for the Bengals, and I think you can kind of take advantage of that, running out wide and have him pave the way. But I'd play him in the slot with Higgins and Chase on the outside, and then you can also move Chase inside. And again, Bowers' ability to play in line. There's a lot of different things you could do here. It'll just come down to Zach Taylor doing his job the best he can, but I love Brock Bowers filling in for Tyler Boyd and not missing production. Let me get to the Minnesota Vikings. So obviously no trade up for Minnesota. That's a little bit of a difference here. But I kind of wanted to explore what happens if they decide, hey, kind of like, I think the Saints ended up moving up the year they got Olave, but they had those 2 first-rounders. And people were like, maybe they move into the quarterback range. It wasn't a great QB draft, but like maybe they're players in this market. But they ended up just sticking and picking, or, mostly they basically kept those 2 picks in the first round. They didn't take 2 and try to make it 1 really high pick. And I wanted to see what Minnesota could do with that. And I think Michael Penix, again, is a fantastic fit in this Kevin O'Connell offense with the asterisks of Penix, other than the Texas game, didn't really attack the middle of the field all that often. KOC wants to attack that area a ton. I think Penix has it in him to be, a high-level trigger man, point and shoot. KOC is going to draw it up. Penix has just got to make the throws. He's got a couple of great receivers. Also, I think he moves in the pocket fine, but where people have that concern, he's plugged to an offense with Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill, one of the best tackle tandems in the NFL. So love this a ton. Going to be more pressure on Garrett Bradbury because interior pressure could potentially be a cause for concern against Michael Penix. But love that fit in that offense, and now you still get to pick at 23. They're actually going to, spoiler alert, move up from that pick ever so slightly. And then Bo Nix goes to the Denver Broncos next pick. And I think this is like the headline the NFL would love to see. Like, oh my God, 6 quarterbacks in the first 12 picks. It's a new era, a new generation. Like, the NFL will just run with these headlines. And it makes for a really compelling story, right? And like, you look at these teams, 11, 12, 13, it's like Vikings can compete if they get a good quarterback. The Broncos could be interesting if their quarterback play gets an upgrade. And then the Raiders, kind of the same deal. And obviously the Raiders, the team on the outside looking in, they are going to go quarterback later on in this draft class. But here at 13, we'll stick with old reliable Talise Fawanga. I think nice plug-and-play option after you lose Jermaine Illuminor. Really feels like a nice play for the Raiders. I like him in zone blocking concepts. That's typically Luke Getsy's, MO, so I like him a ton there as a fit. Then we get to the New Orleans Saints. I'm going to go Olu Fashanu here. I think Penning's probably better off playing guard. Maybe give him the shot to flip over to play right tackle. We'll see what happens with Ryan Ramczyk and that injury, and it sounds like it's gotten worse this offseason, which is like the complete opposite of what you would anticipate. So things to monitor there. I'm not too concerned with Olu Fashanu. He's going to be in my top 5 offensive tackles. Love the pass protection. And Derek Carr was under a ton of duress last year, so getting a pass pro upgrade here would be big. Then we get to Indianapolis Colts. Easy selection for me here. Brian Thomas Jr. I feel like a lot of Colts fans really want Thomas Jr. or Brock Bowers, which I totally understand. This is just Alec Pierce plus, more yak ability. And Brian Thomas, kind of going back to the Jane Daniels thing and even Michael Penix, like not a whole lot of stuff over the middle of the field, but the way Brian Thomas Jr. moves and how fluid of an athlete he is, there's nothing telling me that you can't add, at minimum, a slant and a dig route into his route tree. Keeping DBs honest, adding a couple of in-breaking routes to keep them on their toes. So that way, that go ball, that nine route is something that, maybe that speed, it does sneak up on a lot of people. But if you're also thinking, okay, this might be a dig, that might be just enough where that long speed becomes that much more potent. He had the best flying 20, the back half of the 40-yard dash, that last 20, and with those strides, absolutely. Kind of a couple of weird drops on his tape, but I don't think that's going to be a major concern at the next level. So let's expand the route tree, and let's get an absolute upgrade over Alec Pierce for this Anthony Richardson-led offense. Seattle here at 16, I'm going to have them trade out of this pick. Been wanting to do this for some time. They have no second rounder, so let's have Washington come up, give up both their seconds to pick at 16. We're going to give him Troy Fautanu as a plug-and-play guy there at left tackle. Love what he could mean for the run game, but also just an absolute upgrade in pass protection over Charles Leno, who's just kind of frustratingly average. I think Fautanu could go ahead of this. Maybe he does go ahead of Olu Fashanu. Could totally see that. But maybe there's enough tweener concerns to where he gets just far enough down the board where Washington can load up with those 2 seconds and move into this spot. And then for Seattle, now you have 3 picks on day 2. You prefer that versus the 1-1, and then not picking again until 81. So I wanted to explain the situation here with Seattle. Let's get to the Jacksonville Jaguars at 17. We'll go Terrion Arnold, still my cornerback 1. I get it, Quignon's a little bit faster and also a little more size, but I just love the movement skills, the change direction that Arnold brings to the table. And hey, man, like if Ronald Darby can have a year like he did last year, dude, plugging Terrion Arnold into the slot. This is the same team I wanted to have draft Brian Branch in the first round last year. I still like was it Anthony Johnson? Who's the guy I'm thinking of? Name is kind of escaping me. Fell all the way to the 5th round for weird reasons that I can't understand. But Arnold could just be an upgrade over that. Play him in the nickel, plus Darby, plus Tyson Campbell, hopefully bounce back. Could become a really scary secondary really quick there in Jacksonville. Back to the Jets. So, offensive line, obviously a big need. And I almost wonder if they could just flip Latham over to the left side, have him basically play left guard, year one. I know they brought in John Simpson, so you don't have to force this, but Simpson's also making $6 million a year. Let's not act like that's like high-end starter. They paid more to Lincoln Tomlinson than they did John Simpson. So Simpson could start, but you could also just get Latham's feet wet playing left guard, and then maybe in a year's time he slides over and becomes your left tackle of the future. Tyron Smith, I do expect to just be a one-year guy with the New York Jets. And also, like, does he play all 17? That's a huge question every year with Tyron Smith. So like the move back to get J.C. Latham here. Also won't hate if they stick and pick at 10 and take Troy Fautanu. But I've been going Brock Bowers pretty heavily, or Rome Odunze last mock for the Jets. Want to get some offensive line first-round talent on that roster and explore that possibility, plus the additional draft assets. Los Angeles Rams, I know a lot of people are going to be saying, hey, Byron Murphy, here you go. I'm actually going to go Leatu Latu. I think Kobe Turner's a really nice player, and you can find a run-stopping D-tackle next to him to keep him clean and just let Kobe Turner be a high-end pass rusher. Maybe it's signing someone, in free agency, just kind of off the streets, or maybe it's like a Tyler Davis, beginning of day 3. I could see that world. And I could see where Leatu Latu, kind of like a Puka Nacua, like the in-game athleticism pops more than maybe like the on-paper, athleticism maybe says. But I even think his combine testing was better than people were expecting. So big fan of Leatu Latu, and just NFL ready, totally polished from a pass rush technique standpoint, great with the hand fighting. And I think the Rams are just looking for, hey, like, there's not really a way to replace Aaron Donald, but honestly, as much as I love Byron Murphy, like Leatu Latu might be might be the better option, honestly, in a lot of ways of trying to get that pass rush production that you're losing. It's just going to come from the edge versus the interior. Also, the reason I want to go edge here is like Michael Hoyt is not an edge, right? Like, why is a 6'4", 310-pound guy playing outside linebacker, dropping into zone coverage for the Rams? Maybe we move him inside. Maybe he's the run stopper that complements Kobe Turner. I don't know, but he definitely should be playing edge rusher. Let's get Leatu Latu into that spot instead. Pittsburgh Steelers here at 20. Took a lot of me not to go Jax Powers-Johnson, but really what that means is Quinyon Mitchell is a lot. Like, he's a great player, so like him or DeJean here, that would be enough to kind of fight off the JPJ urge. I don't know what it is. I don't normally like centers in the first round. I knocked the Steelers for going Najee Harris in the first round, but for some reason this year the center is kind of speaking to me just because I love JPJ that much. But Quinyon Mitchell, look, Dante Jackson's in the last year of his deal. Let's not act like that's a long-term piece. Maybe he's okay, but he really hasn't had a season so far that's been anything above mediocre, just middle of the road, So let's strive for something better. High-end athlete Quinyon Mitchell with more physicality than you would expect for a sub-200-pound corner. Giving him, especially his long speed plus JPJ, I love what that outside corner tandem could be, and I'm actually not done going corner. We're going to go in the slot a little later on in this mock for my Pittsburgh Steelers. Miami Dolphins are next up here at 21. This is where we're going to have that Minnesota trade that I mentioned earlier. And for Miami, like, this is just like, dude, anybody who will give us any picks, like, give them to us. And then 108, that would be their third pick. And then Minnesota still has another fourth-round pick that they have under their belt. And if I'm honest, we're not doing the fourth round here. Michael Pratt's not going to go in the first 3 rounds of this mock, but if I were the Miami Dolphins, I'd take Michael Pratt there at 108. I think he's a good scheme fit. I know Tua was healthy last year, but nobody is able to predict a concussion, so I think stylistically Pratt really fits that offense. And also maybe it's some leverage to try to get the offer down for Tua, because if he's coming out and asking for $40 million a year, which, hey, if I'm him, that's what I'm doing. I'm saying Daniel Jones is not good. Give me 40, because if that's what he's making, I deserve it. I totally get it. We got to get that number down closer to a Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield number, and maybe drafting a guy, maybe gain a little bit of leverage and say, hey, well, we can't do that number, we'll move on. And, maybe if Tua wants to stay in Miami long enough, or badly enough, that'll be what moves the needle enough. Just an option out there. Dolphins fans, let me know what you think about Michael Pratt on day 3. Anyways, getting back to the Minnesota Vikings, I kind of thought about Byron Murphy at 11. So to have him fall here at 21 is like an absolute steal here for Minnesota, I think he should be the first defensive player off the board. He's my favorite defensive player in this class. So again, thought about it at 11, but then if Bo Nix goes at 12, then it's like Raiders at 13. They could kind of be Penix players here. So when Penix at 11, trade up. Yes, you lose one of your 2 fourth-round picks, but getting Byron Murphy to that interior defensive line, look it up on our lads. It needs someone like a Byron Murphy. So love this. Move them all across that defensive line. Get some more juice on that front 7. Philadelphia Eagles. This time I want to go Tyler Guyton. I could see a world where maybe they're like, hey, Mims is probably a more polished product, and if Lane Johnson goes down, we want that versus the guy who's a little bit more work in progress. But at the same time, like, Mims comes with some injury concerns. Both of his injuries are really teammates falling on him, so they're kind of fluky, if I'm honest. But nevertheless, injuries still did pop up. So maybe they'll want to go for the more sure, clean bill of health with Tyler Guyton. And also, he is Lane Johnson's pick. And they took Cam Jurgens when Kelsey said, hey, that's the guy who I think should be my heir apparent. Maybe they'll do the same thing with Johnson and Guyton. Miami, going to have them trade back once again. I think this is a team, just because of how light they are on draft capital, like any move back they can get, even if it's just a couple of picks and they're getting an extra day 3 selection because of it, I think they're going to take advantage of it. Here, there's going to be a little bit more of a fall, but it's going to be pick 32. I'm trying to remember how I did this. Yeah, 95, and then I think I threw in one of these 5s. Yeah, just another day 3 pick plus pick 95 for Miami, and actually I'm really excited about the player I'm going to give Miami there at 95. And again, maybe the points don't totally add up, but Miami's desperate enough to take the picks where I think they'll be like, yeah, sure, whatever, we'll do it. Kansas City comes up. If Adonai Mitchell ends up becoming a Kansas City Chief, look out, man. I know he's not for everybody. I know effort concern is going to be out there, but I love the upside, and I think we can get more consistency with his routes. And also Kansas City, assuming Rashee Rice, let's say the suspension isn't for the full year. I don't think it's going to be. Maybe it's 2 to 4 games. Him plus Hollywood Brown, plus Justin Watson. You may not need Adonai Mitchell to play a full snap share, right? So that might help with that as well. Also, just dare I say, maybe the best double move route runner in this class, which is, I know it's a lot to say when Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, Marvin Harrison Jr., they're all objectively better receivers, but him, A.D. Mitchell on double moves is crazy, and you throw him into this Chiefs offense, get a couple double moves in there with Pat's big playability in his arm, oh my god, it could be crazy. Plus 4.35 speed for A.D. Mitchell. I'm all about this fit, all about this landing spot, one of my favorite player-to-team destinations in this draft. Dallas Cowboys are next year at 24. Real easy one. Graham Barton is going to be the pick. I would just assume you play him at left guard. That's kind of been the position I've been, banging the table for him to play at, and then Tyler Smith becomes your left tackle. Easy peasy. Love the pass protection side. Also love the movement skills and what it could do for that run game. And then you're hoping Hoffman's a pretty solid center. That's kind of the one thing we're going out on a limb on in this mock draft. Maybe Tanner Bortolini in the 4th round is an option, though. Again, we're not doing a 4th round in this mock. Green Bay at 25. That's where I'm going to actually have Jack Powers-Johnson go. I know Barton over JPJ. Some Cowboys fans are going to be like, I'd rather just have JPJ. I get that. And you could totally flip these picks, and I'd be totally fine with that. I think I've mocked Barton to Green Bay in a previous mock, maybe the last one. But also, Josh Myers is just maybe the weak link on that offensive line. If it's not him, it's Sean Ryan, who I actually kind of liked coming out of UCLA. And, I think each of the last 2 years, I've looked at Green Bay's day 3, and I've just fallen in love with it. So here's to maybe them doing that again. I've just loved what they've done on day 3 each of the last 2 years. But if they don't feel like Sean Ryan can start 2 years ago, where did Jackson Powers-Johnson play at Oregon? None other than right guard. So could be a Sean Ryan upgrade right away, but also I don't think Josh Myers has proven to be a standout player. Maybe he gets that, year 4 bump this year. Maybe it's year 3, but I think it's year 4. Maybe he gets that bump this year, but Jack Powers-Johnson also could just be an upgrade at that position. Wanted to discuss it here at 25. Jared Verse falls right in the lap of Tampa Bay. I mentioned this last week, and I was like, dude, if he falls here, I love that fit. Super explosive Yaya Diaby. I'm still waiting for Joe Tryon-Shinka to take another step forward, but then the power and straight line explosiveness of Jared Verse, love that as a fit. Feel like that's a really nice trio of pass rushers in Tampa Bay. Then we get to Arizona. This is where Cooper DeJean comes off the board. Whether it's inside or out, I'm feeling pretty comfortable about it. I'd honestly play him on the inside just because I value the slot that much. Love him. That's where I'll have him both in my corner rankings and my slot rankings when I do my position rankings, but he's my slot one, and that's super valuable to me. And I think Garrett Williams, I know he played in the slot last year, but played outside corner his whole career at Syracuse. I think the arm length is totally fine for him to do that. So let's just move Garrett Williams back outside. Cooper DeJean in the slot, another playmaker. I'm all for it for Arizona. Buffalo Bills, we'll go Keon Coleman. He's a polarizing prospect, man. I like the gauntlet drills, and I love the ball skills, and especially with the two-sport. I love guys who are multi-sport athletes like a Drake May. I love those guys. I think it brings about a different level of competitiveness, and I'm super competitive, so anytime I see that in someone else, I'm like, yeah, give me that. But Keon also, splitting time between basketball and football, maybe that's what held him back as a route runner. I'm willing to take a chance on that being the case. Not the worst. I love what he could do as a field stretcher, big play guy, go up and win it for a team that has a quarterback who is prone to just chuck it up, so I like that fit. Then we get to the Lions here at 29. This is going to be Chop Robinson. You can kind of have him sit behind Marcus Davenport and Aiden Hutchinson for a year. Also could just roll out a NASCAR package, And they explored some of this last year with Aiden Hutchinson playing inside. So could you have Hutchinson roll inside and get James Houston and Chop Robinson on the field? Both those guys with hella speed and bend. I would totally be here for that. Chop Robinson, I think, definitely deserves to be in a first rounder. Kind of gotten lost in the shuffle, it feels like, for some people. But love the athleticism. And I think get the right defensive line coach working with him, he could become an absolute perennial all-pro type of upside guy. Then we get to the Baltimore Ravens, linking up Ladd McConkey and Todd Monken from a year of overlap there at Georgia. Also just love, his ability to stretch the field. Anytime you have Lamar Jackson, you're going to draw the attention of safeties, creep them back in the box. And I think Ladd McConkey's got the deep speed to make him pay. Also just a sharp route runner, like what he could do as a man coverage beater. And I don't necessarily know if Rashad Bateman's proven to be that guy, and I don't necessarily know if man press is ever going to be something that Zay Flowers can beat. I think McConkey's got a little bit better of a shot with that. The only downside is all these receivers would be at 6 foot or a little bit lower. Maybe you want someone with a little bit more size. I can understand that, but nevertheless, I like Ladd McConkey as a fit in that offense. And then we get to San Francisco here at 31. Amarius Mims, you could have him compete with Colton McKivitz right away. McKivitz for $7 million could also just be a really solid swing tackle, and I'm fine with that too. So, again, a couple of injuries for Mims, both of them just being players falling on him, his teammates falling on him, kind of fluky. So, assuming that is why he got hurt and there's not actually a genetic reason, right? It's not him, right? Then this becomes an absolute steal because he's a fantastic fit with his power and his movement skills for this blocking scheme, and he gets to work with Trent Williams day in and day out. That would be absolutely terrifying for the entire NFL. Miami Dolphins at 32 after a couple of trade downs. I'm going to go Xavier Worthy. Receiver 3 is a major need, and I know it's a little cliche to give the fastest guy in the class, the 4.21 guy, to the Miami Dolphins, who drafted Devon A-Chain last year, have Waddle, have Hill. I know, it's a little cliche, but again, position of need, and because speed is so important for Hill and Waddle, the snaps are a little bit different versus your normal wide receiver. Going back to Tyreek, he almost broke Calvin's single season receiving record, and he was on pace to do it with 50% less snaps played, something crazy, 40% less snaps played. Insane. And I think adding one more receiver helps make sure that you always have a guy on the field that has this game-breaking speed, and you can kind of rotate those guys out evenly. Also, Waddle's had injury concerns. Hill missed a game last year. We're getting close to 30 if we're not already at it for Hill. So, I don't know. Just an interesting conversation. I think Xavier, again, it's a little cliche, but at the same time, he really does fit with what they want to do, and it's a position of need, so it's worth exploring. Let's get to Carolina here at 33. We're going to wait to go receiver. Just kind of wanted to kick the rocks and see. Is that a saying? Kick rocks normally means leave, right? But just kind of want to explore the possibilities of what if they wait a little bit longer in receiver. I know we're so prone to be all right, they need receiver, got to go that here. Maybe there's someone else they like a little bit later on the board and they think they can get him the third. That's what we want to look at here. You go Robinson here, and I think you play him outside, inside, especially on passing downs, lining him up next to Derek Brown on the interior. Super interesting idea. So Darius Robinson, I like that pick there at 33. Feels like he's starting to gain some first-round buzz again, too, so maybe he goes a little higher than where I previously had him going the last couple of mocks. New England, trust me, I want to go Kingsley Suamataia here really bad, but receiver is a major need here. I feel like Ricky Pearsall could just play the Devontae Parker role, but be way better at separating. I think it was the best 3-cone of anybody at the combine, but definitely the receivers at 6'4", 6'2". So love that suddenness, and you see it with his route running. Love the hands, can play inside and out. Again, Devontae Parker, who can actually separate for this New England team. Now we get to the Arizona Cardinals once again. Johnny Newton, receiver corner Newton. That is just chef's kiss right there for the Arizona Cardinals. And then when you think about, if they trade out a 4, they might get 11 and 23 to go with it. This could be an insane draft haul for the Cardinals. Really interested to see what they do. Johnny Newton, if he falls out of the first round, I don't think he makes it past 35. 35 is my basement floor for where Johnny Newton goes in this draft. And I think Seattle would honestly entertain me here at 36, even with Leonard Williams and Draymond Jones. I think they'd be intrigued. But instead, here at pick number 36, let's go Jordan Morgan. We'll just slot him in at left guard. Really like that. Think he's going, especially if he's on the interior, power might be a bit of an issue. So let's get him in a zone blocking scheme. I think that's going to be ultimately what not Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb is going to run in Seattle. So I like him there at left guard. And if Charles Cross misses any time, you have a built-in contingency as a left tackle option. Chargers then at 37. Let's go Kool-Aid McKinstry. I'm kind of irritated I didn't get him in the first round, especially after the 4.47 40 time, even with a fracture in his foot. Sounds like he's going to be cleared to go by day one. Christian Fulton's a one-year deal. Also, I'm intrigued by the idea of just moving Asante Samuel Jr. into the nickel. Size-wise, he fits a little bit better there. So I can see where Harbaugh wants to do that, and it's Kool-Aid and Fulton on the outside. Like that a ton. Makes a lot of sense, like the size, like the athleticism, that now that we know what it is when it comes to a 40 and 3 years of playing experience. When Nick Saban trusts you to play as a true freshman, I think Jim Harbaugh is going to be like, why is this guy in the second round snag? Let's get to the Tennessee Titans here at 38. As promised, we are going to go off at the tackle. I love me some Kingsley Suamataia, my preseason off the tackle 3. Kind of wild to say out loud, but still like him a ton. And you put him in the hands of Bill Callahan, the best offensive line coach, I think, doing it right now. I mean, that is awesome. Plus, he's played left and right tackle. So I almost want to explore a world where they take Alt at 7 and Suamataia here at 38, just get their tackle tandem of the future. I'm really intrigued by that. But nonetheless, Suamataia here at 38, I think it's about a good range for him. He might end up going a little bit lower. I'm pretty high on him, so I think he could go a little higher. But realistically, I think this to about 50 is a good spot. Where are the Rams pick? 51? Yeah, from here to 51, I could see being on the table for his range. Let's get back to the Carolina Panthers. Easy one here. Zach Frazier. I say this all the time. I do not want to see Austin Corbett try to play center, so let's just not have them need to do that. Let's make him a swing interior guy. Zach Frazier, plug and play dude for this offense. And you got to think, no Ryan Jensen last year for Tampa Bay, but imagine what Dave Canales, in that offense could have looked like had they had a potential future Hall of Fame center. Not saying Zach Frazier is going to be that, but I do think it could be a position where he wished he had more maybe last year in Tampa Bay, especially with Jensen being on the roster and just getting hurt. I can see where he's yeah, give me a high-end center. I like that value there at 39. And I think Frazier, this is about, honestly, the Chargers at 37. That's kind of when the window opens. Maybe even earlier. Pick 32 if his team trades back. A Miami, a Dallas, a Pittsburgh. Maybe they become options as well. But 39, really good value. Been doing that a lot in my mocks. Seattle then at 40. Let's go Jaden Hicks. Best 40 time, a lot of the guys of the top tier safety group. Whether he's playing in the box or free safety, I think he's a really nice option there for Seattle after a big turnover moving on from Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams. I like him a little bit more as a box safety. I like him playing more downhill, but 4.47 also tells me, he's got enough long speed to be an over-the-top safety as well. Green Bay then here at 41. I need a linebacker. Let's go get the best one, day one, Peyton Wilson. I'm intrigued by the upside of Edgerrin Cooper, and Green Bay is kind of a player development factory. I wouldn't hate them going Edgerrin Cooper here, but day one talent, Peyton Wilson. Plays a little tall, but other than that, I'm not too worried about it. His arms aren't super long either, but just as a downhill linebacker next to Quay Walker, I like that fit a lot for Green Bay. Another pick where I got to stick to it. I think Houston's got guys that can stop the run. I think they can afford to take Braden Fisk here, where run game may not be his strength, but getting upfield, being a single gap, pass rushing penetrator, that's his game. And he's such an explosive athlete that you throw him on a D-line that already has Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter rushing from the edge. And Derek Barnett, I believe, is coming back. That gets really, really fun to think about there in Houston. D'Amico Ryan's coming from San Francisco. Prioritizing interior pressure has always been a big part of their MO. I don't think D'Amico Ryan's is going to view it any differently. Atlanta next up at 43, with them not going edge round one. I think Chris Braswell makes a ton of sense. He's kind of just now gotten the body to fit into a 3-4 defense, and because of that, I think there's a lot of meat on the bone of his development. And get him into a Raheem Morris defense, I'm feeling pretty optimistic about what that upside looks like, and I could see a lot of ways where he's almost a little bit more than what Byron Young was last year for the Rams. I know that's crazy to say because Byron Young turned out to be a pretty darn good rookie, but I could see Braswell having a similar type of year for Raheem Morris in Atlanta if he's the pick here at 43. All right, now we get to the Vegas Raiders at 44. Another guy that easily could go in the first round. Nate Wiggins speed-wise kind of matches what the Raiders historically have prioritized. Somewhere Al Davis is loving this pick. But I could also see teams, if it's going to come down to, do they look at 173 at the combine or 182 at his pro day? What's the weight number they're looking at? If it's 173, I could see teams being a little scared off by him, and maybe he does slip into the second round. I think he's a first round talent, especially if it is that 182 pound mark. That's where I'm certainly more comfortable taking him in the first round. But awesome speed, flexibility in man and zone, can play press, can play off. I like a lot of his rounded skill set. Again, 173, 182. It doesn't sound like much. It's 9 pounds, but 182 is way more appealing for me to draft than 173-pound corner, especially given what Emmanuel Forbes looked like last year. All right, then we get to the New Orleans Saints, another fit that I'm just starting to love. It could be Xavier Legette here, but I'm a big Jalen Polk fan. Him as the underneath, middle of the field guy. Love vice grips for hands, sharp right runner. See a lot of Chris Godwin. And the Saints see Chris Godwin twice a year. If they see it similarly, I could see them wanting to jump all over this, play him in the slot, play him outside, and again, just have him be the middle of the field guy to complement Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and who's the guy they brought in from Miami? Cedric Wilson? Yeah, Cedric Wilson. So I feel like he has a different skill set than any of those other three guys. Moving on to the Indianapolis Colts now at pick number 46. I'm going to go with TJ Tampa. I think a guy who could definitely go earlier than this, but has the size, and I know the 40 wasn't great, but given his size, like I don't mind 4.5, and I think overall the athletic testing checks out. I think he'll be more than capable as an athlete at the next level. Plug him into this Gus Bradley cover 3 defense, played a lot of zone at Iowa State. A lot of me says this guy should be a really nice man coverage corner, but his background says, man, put this guy into some zone and he's gonna be a really high level player. And Jalen Jones, I know, was like not a bad 7th rounder, but not bad for a 7th rounder versus like getting a potential upgrade in a 2nd round talent is warranted. Taking TJ Tampa here, and to me, he checks a lot of the boxes of what they've drafted in previous years. And back-to-back 2nd rounders, Juju Brents, TJ Tampa, 2 guys that I really like. So I'd be excited about it if I personally were a Colts fan. Then we get to the New York Giants. Let's go with Troy Franklin here. I'm not as high on Franklin, but like the yards after the catch ability, and definitely has 4.41 speed. You can definitely see that. So another field stretcher on top of Jalen Hyatt. 1 more yards after the catch threat, and an interesting kind of guy you have to tackle, and an offense where you're dealing with Daniel Jones and his rushing ability, and some of the other weapons they have on that roster. So again, not a huge Franklin guy, but I know he's got a couple of big fans that probably will love the value here at 47. Jags are next up at 48. You lose a deep big play threat and Calvin Ridley. Let's replace him with another one, and Roman Wilson. See a lot of Tyler Lockett in his game. Sharp right runner, though, can work underneath, but really we're adding this roster for the deep big play ability that we lost with Calvin Ridley. And again, you just replace it here with Roman Wilson. Also a really nice red zone player because of his route running. We saw a lot of that at Michigan. Then we get to the Cincinnati Bengals here, 49. I'm going to go Chris Jenkins. This has typically been a Tavondre Sweat, but he is going to fall a little bit in this mock just because of the DWI stuff. But Chris Jenkins, high-level run defender. Hopefully there's some more beat of the bone for him as a pass rusher. I'm not entirely convinced of that, but I know guys like John Ledyard think that there is. So let's hope that is the case. But at the worst, you're replacing the run-stopping production that you lost with DJ Reader not coming back to Cincinnati, and that's going to be a huge hole to fill there for the Bengals. And I think Chris Jenkins fills it pretty well. Let's get to the Philadelphia Eagles. Edgerrin Cooper are going to continue to be the pick here. I like him as a draft and stash guy for Philly, and I like the idea of sniping him before the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I feel like are going to really like Edgerrin Cooper, and if he's on the board here at 51, makes a lot of sense they might go in that direction. So, again, draft and stash Philly, snipe Pittsburgh. Speaking of the Steelers here at 51, same pick as last time out, Xavier Legette, line of A.J. Brown kind of in his body, and I know a later breakout guy, that's a little bit of a cause for concern, but love the deep speed, love how he runs a slant, love the yards after the catch stuff, which I feel like is something that Pittsburgh doesn't have really right now other than Calvin Austin, but even that, as a yak guy, Austin's different than Legette, something that Arthur Smith's going to want to have in this offense. So to me, it makes a lot of sense, and I could see a world where he makes it down here to 51. Back to the Rams on the clock here at 52. Let's go Kamari Laster. I mean, they drafted another, corner out of Georgia with a 4.6 40, So, I mean, I think Deion Kendrick was actually like 4.7. They took him in like the 6th round too, but I think Laster, I might not even have him in my outside corner rankings. He might just be slot only. Because if 4.64 is really his 40 time, but then you see like a 6.64 3-cone, that's telling me change direction, keep this guy over the middle of the field, and let his natural coverage instincts play there. So he might only be a slot guy for me. So Quentin Lake ended up being a pretty decent slot corner for the Rams. So maybe this is like, you're not really getting an upgrade there, but maybe Quentin Lake can move outside. Maybe Laster does have more speed than what he showed at that combine or that Pro Day 40. I don't know, but I like the idea of his natural coverage instincts playing on the inside with that 3-cone. And it's going to come down to, was Quentin Lake good last year, or was he kind of just good for the scheme? Can we actually get better there? To me, I think it's worth a shot here with Laster at 52. Eagles in 53. This is a tough player to get in here because Jermaine Burton, talent wise, this is a really nice value. He's a really nice player. Great deep speed, deep route running. I think, again, another guy that, get a slant off of it, keeping DBs on their toes. He can do some of that underneath stuff, like the hands. It's the character stuff's a big concern. Punching a fan after a lot, that's brutal. So it's gonna take the right team that has the right environment and the willingness to take a shot. Has the risk appetite for this. If it works out there, Jermaine Burton is that number 3 and there's that deep play threat on top of Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. That could be scary. So it's a little risk reward here for the Eagles, but if they can make it work, there's huge payoff to be had here. All right, let's get to the Cleveland Browns then at pick number 54. I'm going to go Kieran Amagaji. I really like the idea of them drafting and stashing him. You probably just let Jedrick Wills play out the 5th-year option at left tackle. If he takes a step forward, cool. Maybe Amagaji becomes a trade piece then, or maybe you could move him into guard. I don't know about that. But if Wells is kind of more of the same, after Amagaji kind of sits for a year, you have him become your left tackle the future. Plus 36+ inch arms. DeJuan Jones is pterodactyl wings for arms. I love the idea of like the Browns just trotting out these 2 guys with like monster wingspans. Patrick Paul would give you a little bit more of that, but I think Amagaji has a little bit more upside than Paul. Maybe the floor is a little higher with Paul, but I'm chasing ceiling here with Amagaji. Then we get to the Miami Dolphins at 55. Love this pick. Love this landing spot. Love this fit. Christian Hands. This is one hell of a way to replace Robert Hunt. Got a mean streak about him, but great movement skills at 315 pounds. He is a perfect fit for that offensive line. Dallas Cowboys, speaking of perfect fits, I mean, Jonathan Brooks, I mean, the value lines up, the need lines up, the team doctor lines up. I mean, there's so much about this that just like checks so many boxes that it makes all the sense in the world. Mocked it a ton. Won't talk more about it here. It just makes sense. I think a lot of Cowboys fans would be excited about it as well. Pick 57, Kyrie Jackson to me is he's a Todd Bowles type, and they need a corner, man press. Kyrie Jackson, that's his game, but also with his athleticism, his length. I think he becomes an interesting guy when it comes to zone coverage as well, getting his hands in pass catching pockets of receivers. So I think he can be kind of multifaceted there. But I definitely think man press wise, like he's a Todd Bowles fit for sure. Green Bay's next up at 58. I'm gonna go Max Melton, and I am gonna actually go one more corner a little bit later on, but most of that's because it's like a BPA approach. But Max Melton, man, I love, especially in man coverage, what he could be. And if this Jeff Hafley defense can be more man-oriented, Melton's one hell of a fit. And honestly, I could see him sneaking into late 1. I know that sounds surprising, but I really could. The 40 checks out. The arm length checked out to be an outside corner. I'm high on Max Melton for sure. And whether it's inside or out, he's an upgrade over Nixon. He's a potential upgrade over Eric Stokes. I'm really interested to see Stokes this year. More of a man coverage specialist at Georgia. Now we're getting to a more man-heavy defense. What does that mean for him? Hopefully a year 3 bounce back. But in a perfect world, Stokes works out. Jair is happy to be there, and then Melton just becomes like a sick nickel corner. Would love that. I think that works, and that becomes an awesome secondary real quick in Green Bay. Pick 59, I'm going to give the Houston Texans Mikey Sanderstill, one of my guys of this class. I just love Mike Sanderstill. I say it all the time. I see some poor man's Devon Witherspoon and his willingness to crash downhill and be a willing participant in the run game, but also stakey in coverage, change of direction skills are there. Big Mikey Sanderstill guy, and you just get that playmaking type in the slot. I'm absolutely here for it. Outside corner makes some sense here. Maybe, hey, if Max Melton makes it here, I think the Texans are sprinting the card in because you have that flexibility. No guarantee Okudah works out to be a high-level starter on the outside, so Melton could be that. But here we're just going to focus on the slot, get a playmaker there in the nickel, Mikey Sanderstill, plus D'Amico Ryans. I think that in itself is a fantastic pairing as well. Then to the Bills, sticking with the same pick. I think this team they cannot have any, let up in pass production. So I know Jonah Ellis might end up just being like a DPR type year 1, but I think there also comes some certainty that even if he is a DPR, he's going to be a damn good one. That spin move is going to play at the next level. And you put him in a room with Von Miller, I'm intrigued by what that could end up meaning for him. And there's also a world where he packs on enough weight to where he could be an early down guy. So I think it's going to be an offense that puts up a lot of points still, and Josh Allen's going to will his way to that too, so might be able to get away with some DPR NASCAR packages just because of situation, right? You might be up by 2 touchdowns, and because of that, you want Jonah Ellis on the field, and that could be a huge boost. And like I said, Buffalo just does not. This is a year where they cannot have pass rush disappear like it has over the last 2 years. So Ellis goes away to making sure that doesn't happen. Pick 61, a guy that's kind of getting lost in this class. And, if you want to know what Renardo Green is all about, I'll shout out A to Z Sports' own James Foster. He just put out, I think it was like a 5-minute video, just like Renardo Green clips. I mean, it's a really nice cut up, so it's definitely favorable, and it makes you think, damn, this guy could be a stud. But here at 61, I think the size fits, NFL caliber athleticism, sticky in man coverage. Aaron Glenn wants to run man. They sprinkled in more zone last year. I think Green would be fine in that, but his man coverage skills plus Carlton Davis, I think that's a hell of a 1-2 on the outside. Plus Brian Branch playing the nickel. I'm all about that secondary then in Detroit. Then we get to the Baltimore Ravens at 62. I'm going to give them Blake Fisher. I think he's a really talented guy. Weirdly enough, don't often say this, Notre Dame just didn't really crack the code to take it from good to great. I think Baltimore, really nice player development, pipeline, both on both sides of the ball, really. So I could see them taking Blake Fisher, high in athleticism, right now a good player, and I could see them unlocking that next gear and taking him to be a great player. And obviously, Morgan Moses no longer there. Got to fill that right tackle spot. Patrick McCarry, to me, more of an interior guy than a tackle. Then we get to the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going to go Dominic Pooney. Last mock, I had him fall to the third. To me, he's definitely more of a second-round guy. Like the movement skills, like the size. You could play him at left guard. You could play him at center if you wanted to do that as well. I just play him at left guard. Partner him with Trent Williams. Plus, you got Amarius Smith playing right tackle now. Oh, my God, I'd be all about this. Is San Francisco going to double dip at O-line? I'd love to see it. The recent draft history doesn't say that they will, though. If anything, they're gonna take a random running back somewhere, like a Marshawn Lloyd's gonna end up being a Kyle Shanahan guy as a fly buzzes by my face. That was crazy. But anyways, I'd love to see them double down on offensive line. Take that from like one clear strength on that 5-man unit, and everything else is kind of meh at best. And with a couple of picks, they could become strength across the board, which would be scary, again, for the NFL. Kansas City Chiefs, this is where Patrick Pauls can come off the board. They're a team that wants to pass the ball primarily. Patrick Pauls' strength is definitely more in pass pro than it is in run blocking. If Olu Fashanu starts to fall, they'd be a really interesting team to go make that move. But here they kind of get a lesser version of that. Not nearly the athlete, but way longer arms at the same time and bigger hands as well, too. So just different strengths. They're different prospects. I don't know why I comped them or compared them at all. But just want to throw that out. I could see Kansas City maybe if Olu starts to fall. Maybe they're on the lurk for him. But in this case, Patrick Paul falls in their lap, and that becomes a replacement for Donovan Smith. So that's a huge W there for Kansas City. Into the third round, as promised, Carolina, this is where we're going to have them go receiver. I'm going to go Johnny Wilson. I'm not ready to quit Johnny Wilson yet. I think he moves really well for that size. And what were the comps at the beginning of this draft cycle? Oh, man, he might be a little bit more. He's kind of Mike Evans, right? Dave Canales coming from Tampa Bay. Maybe he sees it similarly and says, yeah, maybe not. Maybe the speed. Maybe Evans is going to beat there, but also like 6'6". I don't know. Like I think Wilson moves really well for his size. So maybe their speed's actually kind of similar. I don't know, but could definitely see Johnny Wilson being that Mike Evans type for the Steve Canales offense. Cardinals next up at 66. I'm going to go Trey Benson, and would just love a big play back in that backfield, lined up next to Kyler Murray, complimenting James Conner, who does just about everything else pretty well, but just is not a big play guy. So love that as a complementary fit in that backfield. Washington then at 67 could definitely go JT Sanders here, but I'm going to have JT Sanders fall a little bit more. So I'm going to go Elijah Jones, size speed guy that I think they desperately need. Also, Kalen Carson's interesting to get some physicality in there, especially when like on the other side is Emmanuel Forbes, who physicality not his game. But I'm going to go Elijah Jones, go size speed freak, go with the upside play here, coming off a really nice year at Boston College, playing a lot of man coverage there for Jeff Hafley. So see where Dan Quinn playing a lot of man coverage the last couple of years at Dallas, he could be a guy for him. All right, now we get to New England. Now this is kind of where I'm like, damn, I kind of wish I took, Kingsley Suamataia at 34, and like there's still some decent receiver options here. I'm a big Ricky Pearsall guy though, so. But that being said, like I've said this a couple times, you go back to the Senior Bowl, there's an argument to be made that Christian Jones might have been the best tackle there, point blank and simple. I know a lot of people thought Guyton played well and had a good week, and Fuanga for sure, but Christian Jones might have been the guy that stood out the most, like him and Fuaga, in my opinion, probably. And I know John Ledyard, going back to him, I think he said that, literally. I think he said that Christian Jones was the guy that stood out the most for him from the Senior Bowl. So if that's something that you really prioritize, I think the Senior Bowl matters a lot. That will sell you on this pick here, as New England obviously needs an upgrade at left tackle. All right, let's get to the Chargers here at 69. I don't know if, like, this is a tough one, because I could see where Harbaugh's like, no nonsense, I don't deal with DWI, sweats off the board. Could also see a world where he's like, he just needs to be matured up. Like there have been reports, how valid are they? They're just reports. I can't speak to how valid they are, but apparently teams did have like party concerns with Devondre Sweat. And I think a couple other Texas guys kind of had that same issue. I've heard, but Sweat had some party concerns, and the DWI like 3 weeks before the draft. That just signals a lot of immaturity. So I can see where Harbaugh's like, hey, he's a hell of a talent. We'll be able to give him an environment where we'll get that maturity up as well as his playing. So I don't know. Something about Harbaugh says like, nah, no nonsense, I don't want it. But maybe, just maybe, they're like, hey, we need this, and we're willing to foster this dude up and mature him up. I don't know. Let me know if you're a Chargers fan, if you think Harbaugh would do this. I'm kind of conflicted, leaning towards no, but it's a huge position to need. They need some run defense reinforcements, and Sweat would definitely give you that. Back-to-back Cardinals picks here. Let's go Cooper Beebe. I think just a plug-and-play upgrade there at left guard. Yeah, love that a ton. And especially with Kyler Murray, you want to keep that interior clean. Beebe's pass protection skills makes that a lot easier. Take it with the Cardinals at 71. Let's go Marshawn Kneeland. Dane Brugler just said, this could be the guy who sneaks in the first round. Could he be this year's Peyton Turner? I think that's possible. Wouldn't shock me. That being said, probably more of a second-round guy for me. I do like the upside, though, but he comes with some work. Here he falls a little bit more, hits the Cardinals at 71, where they're not really in a rush to compete, but they could be kind of sneaky. They have enough guys to kind of make do. Dennis Gardeck, Cam Thomas, B.J. Ojulari, so they don't need Nealon to step up right away. And also Jonathan Gannon coming from Philly could see them being like, hey, one more guy. Let's just keep this edge depth crazy. And that plus the value plus the upside with Nealon, I think this is an easy sprint the card in spot for Arizona. To the New York Jets, I think they could use an upgraded over-the-top free safety. Nothing against Tony Adams or anybody else in that room, but Tyler Newman, to me, the best ball-honking free safety. I know the 40 time wasn't special, but I think his feel and his instincts for the game kind of make up for that. And I think you plug him in as that over-the-top free safety. Generated a few more turnovers for this Jets defense. That's already going to be really good, but if he couple of picks, gets the ball into the hands of Aaron Rodgers for a couple extra possessions over the course of the year, it may add up and it may actually swing a few games that they may need in a competitive AFC East and a competitive AFC at the top as well. So, like Tyler Newman, it's kind of a position. There's not a whole lot for the Jets where it's like, yeah, they can get better there. Safety's one of them, and I like Tyler Newman, and he fell right in their lap here. To the Detroit Lions, stop me if you've heard it before, and you all have, but Zach Zinter, you sit him for a year as he continues to recover from the leg injury at the end of the regular season. And he sits behind Kevin Zeitler. Perfect, almost one for one. I see a lot of Zeitler with Zinter, to be honest. But you just have him sit behind Kevin Zeitler. I think that's a perfect mentor for him. 1-year contract for Zeitler. When that expires, Zach Zinter steps into a starting spot at right guard. Love that outcome, and I love that fit for Detroit. Atlanta Falcons then at pick number 74. This is where I'm going to have Junior Colson come off the board. I haven't gone linebacker in many mocks. Actually, I don't think I have it at all yet. But as much as I love Troy Anderson, coming out of Montana State, if memory serves, loved the athlete, running back background. I was really intrigued by Troy Anderson, but just hasn't played great yet, so I want to have a contingency in place. And where the super athletic dude hasn't really molded into shape yet, let's go on the other side of the spectrum and let's go get the not so special athlete, but high-end football player with a great head on his shoulders, just gets the position, trusted to play as a true freshman by Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. That says a lot. And I think that might be the contingency plan that the Falcons are looking for here. So I think the value lines up, and it's kind of I think it's just a nice backup plan here for Atlanta in the middle of that defense. All right, let's get to the Chicago Bears here at 75. I'm going to go Brandon Dorless. Bears fans, let me know. I really thought about Michael Hall because I've been arguing, hey, at 9, if the receivers are gone, Byron Murphy should be the pick because Jalen Carter, we were talking about he's the perfect 3-tech for Eberflus. I think Byron Murphy could be that guy for Matt Eberflus' defense. And I thought about Michael Hall. You're not going to get much out of him in the run game, but as a pure 101 pass rush winner, if you want that disruptor that Matt Eberflus typically wants the 3-tech, he makes a lot of sense. Decided to pass on Michael Hall instead, and actually going to go with Brandon Dorless. To me, he's a little bit more interior who can play outside, but either way, and on a 4-3 defense, you could probably dip your toes into both, play him on the edge, play him on the interior. I think there's some underrated pass rush juice that he brings specifically as an interior rusher, so that's kind of what perked my ears to this one. I was like, if he's your 3-tech, I think there might be enough pass rush upside to where he works and he could be that disruptor. But also you could play him on the edge against a team that's killing you in the run game or whatever. So I don't know. Enough flexibility that made it interesting. And they got DeMarcus Walker there. Could Brandon Dorless just be an upgraded version of DeMarcus Walker? I think it could. To the Denver Broncos. I know Tim Patrick's there, but Tim Patrick, as much as I want to get excited about him being there and him being a good football player, he just hasn't been available. So could Jalen McMillan be this, typical big slot that Sean Payton likes? Think Marquise Colston, think about some of the other big power slots that he's had in the years throughout his coaching, resume. And I think Jalen McMillan kind of checks a lot of those boxes as well. To me, he's a bigger Christian Kirk. So I'm a big fan of that. And, let's say Tim Patrick gets hurt. Jalen McMillan could see the field pretty much right away. There's also a world where Marvin Mims continues to see the field sparingly for whatever reason, which doesn't make sense. Feels like he's another Sean Payton type big play dude. But if he doesn't see the field in a full-time role, it could just be Sutton and Patrick on the outside and McMillan in the slot. I do think McMillan's slot only, so that's going to have to be his spot. I think he checks a lot of the Sean Payton power slot boxes, though. Pick number 77, I'm going to give the Las Vegas Raiders Spencer Rattler. I just had to double-check my notes to make sure that it was here. But, yep, Spencer Rattler's going to be the pick here at 77. They missed out on the first-round guy, so they become the team that takes Rattler in the third. Really intrigued by the upside, and he also steps into a situation where he won't need to start right away because Gardner Minshew's there. Also, Aiden O'Connell's there, so you have two different guys where you can give Rattler some time. I think he's matured enough, but that's going to be the concern, here where he's like, oh, well, character wasn't the best, and kind of look like a jerk on QB1, all that sort of stuff, and now you're dropping him into Vegas. Like anytime you just drop a dude into Vegas, like personality is going to be a big part of the question. Can this work? And I think he's matured enough to where I'm not worried about it. But I also haven't done any interviews with Spencer Rattler, so what do I know? Let's get on to the Washington Commanders next up at 78. I'm going to give him Braylon Trice. I think I like Adisa Isaac a little bit more, but I think for what they currently have, Trice is a different skill set, a little more speed to power type, and also insane motor. So maybe they'll prioritize that over a little bit more of a jack of all trades type of Adisa Isaac, but doesn't have that one trump card. So I can see Trice as the different skill set that they're coveting here, and adding him into that defensive line that obviously needs some more edge reinforcements after trading Sweat and Chase Young. Excuse me. Let's get on to the Atlanta Falcons once again. I'm going to go Kalen Carson here. We haven't gone outside corner just yet, and Kalen Carson, I actually wasn't super high on him coming into the season, but now kind of going back and looking at it, this is where I like him. Like second, third round, it's like, yeah, I'm comfortable with that. Like he feels like a really solid player and probably a pretty good day one starter in a lot of ways, just because the physicality is there. And there's a lot of corners where I'm like, I'm kind of iffy on their physicality. Kalen Carson, not at all. Like I don't question it whatsoever. Prototypical size, and I think enough athleticism there, plus that play strength. Yeah, just like an easy guy on round 2, round 3, where it's like, yep, that's a pretty darn good starter you just drafted. And I think outside corner opposite of AJ Terrell, that becomes an upgrade there for the Atlanta Falcons. Back to the Jets here at 80. This is where I'm going to go tight end. I'm going to go JT Sanders. I think he's a polished enough route runner, and I like the hands, but specifically the route running to where he can do more than just this. But Rodgers' tight ends typically have just been kind of seam runners, and JT Sanders is like an athlete. Like I'm fine with that too. Like year one, if you just want him to run the seam for Rodgers, respect the middle of the field, I'm down. Like I'm cool with that. But hopefully they tap more into that right running background, and I just think Rodgers is looking for more weapons generally. So could see that. But if Jalen McMillan's here, like an upgrade over Alan Lazard, I'm really cool with that as well. So just want to throw that out there as an option. Seattle's next up at 81. A linebacker that I have not talked about just yet, Edifon Olafosio. I didn't think his athletic testing would be as good as it was, but after I got the numbers from the combine, I was like, oh, shoot, got to go back and revisit. And I've been meaning to get him in these mocks, but honestly, this is a linebacker class that it's just not, the value's not great. But here in the 80s, I'm like, yeah, Olafosio can come off the board. And obviously, Washington guy, staying in state, that's cool. Low moving cost, shout out to NFL Stock Exchange guys. But also like Jerome Baker, 1-year deal, Tyrell Dotson, 1-year deal. Olafosio has good tape, better athletic testing than I thought. Just draft and stash him, becomes a starter by year 2. I like that path a ton for the Seattle Seahawks. Colts are back on the clock at 82. I'd love to see them take Brock Bowers in the first round. I'd love to see that because that'd be really fun. But in the event that doesn't happen, could we just give him one of these Iowa tight ends, Eric All? I think he could start right away. I don't think his injury history is linked to one another. And I see a sharp route runner with great yards after the catch skills, high-end athlete. Just another one of these really nice Iowa tight ends. Good blocker, too. So as long as the injuries aren't a concern, I have a hard time thinking Eric Hall is not going to be a pretty darn good tight end at the next level. And that'd be a nice little upgrade there for the Indianapolis Colts. Rams are next up at 83. I'm going to go Ruka Rororo here. He's just one of these guys that lingers on the board way too long for me. I probably should mock him to the Chiefs as like a Charles Omenihu eventual replacement, but they have other needs that I want to prioritize. But I'll have Ruko here. He can play edge on early downs, move inside, and maybe this is like, especially in passing situations, you line him up next to Kobe Turner, and that just becomes the interior, pass rush juice and a way to partially replace Aaron Donald, especially in those passing situations. And I almost wonder, would they play him inside on early downs? Because he was a pretty good run defender. Like his length, could you use him there? That'll be for the Rams to determine, as that is not my job here. I'm just mocking him to the LA Rams. But I do like that fit, and he's a guy that should go ahead of 83. He's a better player than the 83rd overall player in this class. He just tends to be someone I have fallen these mocks for whatever reason. Pittsburgh on the clock at 84. I'm going to go Cedric Van Pran. Pittsburgh needs to find an upgrade at center. I think Van Pran's got enough movement skills to fit this zone blocking scheme of Arthur Smith, but also multi-year starter, plenty of play strength and toughness to go with it. Kind of feels like a nice fit there for the Steelers, and they just got to get better. Nate Herbert cannot be starting at center week 1. Let's get to the Cleveland Browns then at 85. Potential hot take here, but Blake Corum's my RB1. And I have to be careful with saying this because I don't think he's going to be this guy, but I see a lot of Nick Chubb with Blake Corum. And I don't know if anybody else has said that, but I see a lot of Nick Chubb. And especially when you consider like Chubb took a little bit longer to recover from his first knee injury, but eventually he got back to 100% and he became the Nick Chubb that we all know and love. Even as a Steelers fan, I say that. I love me some Nick Chubb. And I think of the last 4 games this last year at Michigan for Blake Corum, we saw where it's hey, he was a little slow to bounce back from the injury in 2022. Beginning of 23 wasn't normal, winning a phone booth, short area explosiveness, Blake Corum. But by the college football playoff, definitely, we saw that Blake Corum back. So I think he's back to 2022 version of himself, which again, is very Nick Chubb to me. So I know they restructured the deal for Chubb. No guarantees the same guy after another knee injury. Could this be the handing of the torch? Maybe, just maybe. Houston back on the clock at 86. I'm going to go Ennis Rakestraw Jr. I know we already drafted a corner, and this is kind of my Jeff Okudah just in case he doesn't work out. Ennis Rakestraw Jr. could be that outside corner. I think they would prioritize a guy who, not a whole lot of long speed for sure, but we have a great pass rush. We just took an interior defensive lineman with pass rush juice. We're going to be able to get home to the quarterback before we're worried about the long speed costing Ennis. And basically this becomes a camp battle. Can Okudah have a breakout year, or is Ennis just a polished product? Which that's what he is. I don't think he's a special athlete, but he's really polished, really feisty. I love corners where it's you're not going to win every rep. Eventually you're going to lose one, but I love corners that after they lose a rep, they're all right, not happening second time in a row. You're not getting me on this one. And Ennis has that. And I love that type of physicality. So you can see him kind of meshing with D'Amico Ryans. I know it's 2 corners. There's other needs, but I actually think the interior offensive line, there's enough guys. Nick Broker, I liked out of Ole Miss as a guard. Juice Scruggs, I think, could be better year 2. I really like Jarrett Patterson as a center option, especially with where they got him. I think there's enough pieces to make it work on the interior offensive line, so I'm going to double down at corner instead. Dallas here at 87. They lose Michael Gallup. I'm a big Javon Baker fan. Love his ability to go up and get. Love the release packages too. He may not have one trump card, but if there is one, I think his release is probably what I'd go to. Sharp enough route runner, enough size, good enough not good athlete, not great, but good is all we really need here to replace Michael Gallup. Love that fit. I think this is what they drafted Gallup around the same rate, so it's maybe Cowboys fans get a little cold feet about this, but I think Baker. I like Baker a lot more. All right, Green Bay then at 88. I told you we're going to go back to the well with defensive back. Bullard might just end up being your box safety, and you play Xavier McKinney over the top. Could totally see that. I also think they both could work in split safety sets if that's what Jeff Hafley wants to do. Could also see a world where Eric Stokes continues to disappoint, and then you're talking about Bullard playing the slot, Melton playing outside. And I'm totally cool with that. I think all that works for a man-heavy defense as well. I think Stokes is going to bounce back in year 3, and then Bullard ultimately is just going to be your strong safety, your box safety type, which I love turning the secondary around because I think the pass rush on the fronts there, just tweak a couple things, both with the DC and then a couple pieces in the secondary. Green Bay defense could be top 5 next year, no doubt. Tampa Bay then at 89. I'm going to give him Christian Mahogany. Haven't gone into your offensive line yet. I think he kind of matches the physicality that they want. And it's interesting because Liam Cohen, it's typically, and we're going to come back to this in a couple of picks, typically LA's been zone, but last year you see a little bit more gap, especially in the red zone, just pounding the rock inside the 20. And I think Cohen's going to bring, something tells me they're going to bring that to Tampa Bay. I think Todd Bowles kind of wants to bring that. I think Mahogany's got enough movement skills to do the zone stuff, but also a killer mean streak. Wants to murder the guy across from him that he kind of fits the gap stuff too. So plug and play guy, in my opinion, there at left guard. Put a pin in that. We're going to come back to it at 92. Arizona Cardinals at 90. I'm going to go with Tez Walker here. I think they get doubled down at receiver, and they don't really have a pure straight line speed guy. And Tez, the hands were concerned at the Senior Bowl. UNC was a little bit of a letdown, but the 2022 Kent State tape is still intriguing enough to where I think he should go somewhere in the top 100. Also had the best GPS time at the Senior Bowl, 4.36 40 time. It's going to go somewhere around this range. And if he's just the 9 route guy for this Arizona team, they don't have a guy to do that. So if he's just running clear routes, opening up the middle of the field for Marvin Harrison Jr., thank you for your service, because I am all about that. Green Bay then at 91. I'm going to go Michael Hall Jr. here. Last year of Kenny Clark's deal, could see a world where Michael Hall just becomes a guy they sit behind Kenny Clark for a year. I think Green Bay's pretty good about drafting a year ahead of their needs. So Michael Hall Jr. eventually becomes your Kenny Clark replacement. Hell of a one-on-one pass rush winner. Run game's going to be a bit of a concern, so I wonder how that works next to Quay Walker and how they play that out. That'd just be something to monitor. Then we get to, this could be another spot. If T'Vondre Sweat continues to fall, could they go here? Not much to do, and respectfully, there's not much to do in Wisconsin, so that could be a place to kind of shelter T'Vondre Sweat. Wanted to throw that out. I was listening to the Football Athletics show, and Nate Tice and Dane Brugler were talking about some of their hardest players to rank, and they both talked about Braylon Allen. I think it was Nate Tice said it. Maybe it was Brugler, but I think it was Tice who said he kind of feels like a zone, like he fits like a zone blocking scheme, even though everything, his build and there should be more physicality he plays with. So much of what he should be says gap, but he actually fits and he plays better in a zone scheme. And you look at Derrick Henry and Minnesota. Where'd that come from? Tennessee, mostly a zone blocking team, but kind of has this, and Braylon Allen kind of has that similar Derrick Henry build. So going back to Liam Cohen, can this be a blend of zone and gap? Because if so, then Braylon Allen becomes a really interesting fit into that. Also, he's a big body, really strong guy that complements Rachaad White really well. I don't think White has turned out to be a great running back, but he's a really nice pass catcher, and he has great athleticism. So I think their skill sets complement each other really well. Allen bringing a little bit more power and physicality, could fit a little bit more of that zone blocking scheme that I think Cohen's mostly going to be running. And then Rachaad White, big play, good speed, and then the receiving threat to complement Braylon Allen. Let me know. This also could be Audric Estime, and I'd be totally fine with that. I'm a big Estime guy as well. Not big, but I'm a pretty sizable Estime fan. Let's get to Baltimore then at 93. This is where I'm going to have Adisa Isaac come off the board. Think edge is one other spot they continue to add resources to. Baltimore's pretty keen at least adding one edge guy throughout this process too. So Adisa Isaac could be their dude, and he falls in their lap at 93. That's a really nice value for. He may not be a superstar, but he's gonna be able to win with speed. He'll win with bend. He'll win with length and enough power. He's just a little bit of everything. He can kind of mix and match based off the weakness of the tackle across from him, which I like a ton. All right, we get to San Francisco at 94. I'm gonna go Mason Smith, team that could use another interior defensive lineman. Mason Smith has all the tools: sick athleticism, awesome frame, the arm length is fantastic. He's just got to get coached up a little bit more. And San Francisco, for my money, has the best defensive line coach in the NFL right now, whose name continues to escape me. I need to start writing it down in my notes. But if he can work his magic with Mason Smith, him next to Javon Hargrave might just be unfair. And I've said that 3 times now with this San Francisco draft. But they're that good of a roster, and you just get a couple pieces in there, they truly do become unfair. Miami, let's just get him an ass kicker on the offensive line. Christian Haynes to be your Robert Hunt replacement. Mason McCormick to be a Liam Eichenberg upgrade. Absolutely signing up. He played left guard at South Dakota State. Sick movement skills, but also, kind of has that, edge to him where he wants to play physical. He has that mean streak. And yeah, like I said with Haynes, the mean streak plus the movement skills, he's an absolute perfect fit for Mike McDaniel's offense. Jacksonville at 96. I'm going to go Gabe Murphy. Maybe the arm length prevents him from being an every down starter, but let's ask the Jags. Aiden Hutchinson has shorter arms than Trayvon Walker. How's that working so far? Not to say Walker can't figure it out. I'm not trying to shit on that. I'm not trying to put Jags fans down under, but the arm length didn't turn out to be as big of a concern for Aiden Hutchinson as maybe Jacksonville and Trent Baalke thought. Let's maybe learn from that mistake. And even if Gabriel Murphy isn't an every down starter because of the short arms, I think he does everything else at a really high level. I'm a big Gabriel Murphy guy. I think he's a really nice day 2 guy. Feels like everyone else is lower on him. I'm fine with that. I take him here at 96, and he's just your Arden Key. He's your DPR. He's your third guy in the mix. And they've been struggling to replace that production lost by Arden Key. I think Gabriel Murphy could do it. Cincinnati Bengals at 97. Let's go Roger Rosegarten. I've been mocking the Steelers, but let's go to another AFC North team. Trent Brown to start for a year, and then Rosegarten could just kind of draft and stash, be eventual replacement for Trent Brown. Maybe even play Rosegarten at right guard, and then Alex Kappa plays left guard. That could be another option as well. So just trying to get the 5 best offensive linemen on the field. And I think if you do that, Rosegarten plays guard for a year, then slides over to play right tackle as a replacement for Trent Brown. And I really like this because you can take him at 97, and even if you draft and stash him, he doesn't play it down. There's a world where he goes back to Washington, moves over to left tackle, and then becomes a mid-first round pick next year. And you're getting him here at 97, and then just drafting and stashing, and now you don't have to use a first round pick on him next year. So I see a lot of ways where it's kind of an easy sell there for Cincinnati. Pittsburgh at 98. I told you we were going to go back to the secondary. I'm going to go Andrew Phillips. Just love what he could be as a nickel. Love the click and close. Love the change of direction, the tenacity, and man coverage, the physicality he wants to play with, both in the run game, but also, again, in coverage. You plug him in the slot, use him as a blitzer, what he'll do in the run game. Dane Brugler said a lot of Roger McCreary. I think he's McCreary with a little bit more twitch, lateral twitch, that is. So I love Andrew Phillips. And, again, I'm not expecting Dante Jackson to be someone he hasn't been in his career. So Quinyon Mitchell plays on the outside. Andrew Phillips in the nickel. Please, for the love of God, let's turn the secondary around in Pittsburgh. Last pick, I'm going to go back to Leonard Taylor. I think 2 years ago, way better at 3-tech versus last year where Miami asked him to bulk up and play nose. So let's get him back in shape-wise to where he was 2 years ago. Let him play the 3-tech. You line him up next to Kobe Turner. I'm really excited about that. Yes, I know we went Rook Ororo, but Rook also can play edge. So, you come with some versatility here. And maybe I should have gone somewhere. Maybe I should have gone offensive line there at 83. So if you're a Rams fan, let me know who that would have been. Or if there's a quarterback, maybe you're like, hey, let's just draft and develop a guy behind Stafford. Let me know. What would you have done there at 83? Because if we're going to go Taylor here at 99, I can see where you're like, hey, Rook, you don't need to double down at D-line. But I'm going to do it anyways. I think Rook gives you enough flexibility to where we're going to do it anyways. But again, Rams fans, let me know what you think about that selection. But guys, that's going to do it for an updated 3-round mock draft from yours truly. Let me know what you think down below in the comment section. Who went too high? Who went too low? And of course, the most important thing you can do is let me know who your favorite team is. Did you like the picks? Did you hate the picks I gave your squad? Am I looking at the right position groups? All that sort of fun stuff. I want to hear it down below in the comment section. Again, still have my grandma in the hospital, so going to be checking in and trying to make myself available for her as much as I can for the time being. And I'm going to try to do better this week about responding to comments with all that said. So please do drop those comments down below. I'm going to try to interact with everyone that I possibly can. But if you enjoyed today's mock, be sure to hit that like button. It helps me and the channel out a ton. This is going to be the third to last mock draft that we do. So give your boy a like for the work that we put into this. And if you want to have more mock draft content, post-draft content, giving out grades for each and every team's draft haul, we're going to be doing that after the NFL draft. And we're going to be putting out YouTube shorts grading every first round pick on the night of day 1 of the NFL draft. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and want more draft content and more offseason content afterwards, grading every team's offseason, every team's draft, all that sort of fun stuff. But that's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Tej, and I'm signing off.